You're listening to the Greenhouse and Indoor Cultivation Podcast, presented by GroAdvisor. Tune in to learn strategies to grow your business, get the most out of your cultivation systems, and advance your horticulture career.
Hello, growers and business owners. It's Brandon and Will, your favorite podcast hosts for the controlled environment agriculture industry. So I just wanted to tell you, we're launching a guide. If you haven't heard yet, it's called Best Practices for Grow Room Design. I'm really excited about it. It's filled with expert advice from grow room design experts. Go to GroAdvisorWorldwide.com. It's amazing. We go deep on grow room design with our team. So if you want to know what it takes to scale your grow room operations from functional to professional, you're going to want to get this guide. There's already a wait list, so join our newsletter to be one of the first to receive it, and I'll see you there. On today's podcast, we speak with Gregg Pearlstone, VP of Sales at Porta-King Building Systems. We'll be having a conversation discussing modular grow room designs, including advantages, comparisons versus conventional stick construction, anecdotes, success stories. This Q&A style podcast is jam-packed with valuable information, and I think you're really going to enjoy this one. So stay tuned, and now to the podcast. So Gregg, it looks like you work over at Porta-King as the VP of Sales. You've been in the modular grow room industry, or modular construction industry, I should say, for quite a long time. And I'm sure you've seen the industry as it has progressed. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your background and how we've reached where we are today.
Sure. Yeah, I tell people I've been here for 35 years, and I get an amazed look. I don't think anybody stays at any one place for that long, but it's been a great place to work and certainly been very interesting. And yeah, quite an evolution in the industry that I have witnessed. Interestingly enough, I went to college, got a degree in the School of Forestry, specializing in selling wood products. And now I've spent the last 35 years selling steel and aluminum.
Wow, a bit of a turnaround there, huh? Well,
yes,
both building materials, so it's in the same family.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's really a pleasure to have you on. I'm looking forward to discussing. I know modular designs have really made leaps and bounds since, I'm sure, when you started over at Porta-King. And why don't you tell me a little about how the industry has evolved, how the designs have evolved, and
Sure.
Really, why should people go modular construction over traditional stick construction?
Absolutely. Well, and that's really what it's all about. The comparison has always been to conventional construction. We accepted that challenge when we introduced the product over 50 years ago, and the idea was simple. It was going to be something that was faster and would afford the customer the ability to move or modify the structure without any loss of the initial material investment. So when I started, it was really about just creating office space. But something interesting happened all along the way is that our customers really became the best innovators for us. They saw value in the design concept, and because of that, and because they were building all kinds of enclosures inside their facilities, they saw the opportunity to utilize the product in other ways. And so, the business continued to evolve, going from beyond just housing personnel, which is still a big part of what we do, to creating environmental enclosures, primarily for manufacturing processes. And then that evolved into clean rooms, which is in part tied to manufacturing, but could also be tied into production of all sorts of other natural items that needed to be produced in a controlled environment. And of course, then this next phase came to us through opportunities to produce grow rooms.
Thanks for being here, Gregg. This is Will Goodin, VP of Business Development with GroAdvisor. And I'm very excited to speak with you today about modular construction, modular design. Having been in cannabis for several years, it's something that I'm very familiar with. Have done a ton of projects that required modular construction. And, could you go into kind of some of the projects you've done and kind of speak to, whether it's in cannabis or not, some of the maybe the highlights of what you guys have accomplished?
Sure. It is a pretty broad base of applications. Yeah, I guess just to speak to the cannabis industry specifically, we recently completed a project for a company called Hyatt Labs, full-scale production. They're actually up in Hazel Park, Michigan. We are working currently on another smaller project. Interesting, the company is called Ancana Controls, but I think that's the parent company. I don't really know what the name of the organization will be for cannabis. And then we are really just in startup of our largest project. Currently, that's actually here in St. Louis for an organization called Kind Bio. It's a 30,000 square foot facility. It's going to be just north of downtown. What's interesting about it is not only are we constructing all of the different grow room applications, but we will be doing a complete build out inside to create all of their offices, their break rooms, their locker rooms, really everything that they will need to not only produce the product, but house and support the personnel that will be working inside.
That is incredible. That's great to hear. And 30,000 square feet is definitely one of the larger type projects that I've seen. That's very incredible. What was the experience with Hyatt Labs? And in your mind, why did they decide to go modular over conventional?
It was really the premise I mentioned before. It was speed to completion. It's really about getting up and growing. So that was what they wanted to do. It was a repurposed structure. So the concept worked perfectly for them while they were doing all of the other work that they needed to get the building. And it was an old building. I had an opportunity to tour it, to get it up and ready for construction. We were doing everything on the background in terms of the design, creating the approval drawings, coordinating the installation process, making modifications that they deemed necessary once they looked at the initial design, and then we produced the product. And so, the completion of their prep work came together perfectly with the shipping of the material. The installation crew did an outstanding job taking the material and getting the installation done, really in a expedited fashion to get them up. And as I understand it, as of last week, they were beginning the grow process.
Wow, that is incredible. Speaking about installation, what's the magnitude typically that that a crew can operate? How many square feet, I guess, per day could be installed?
Well, we did a little analysis. Actually, it's tied to this Kind Bio project, and I had asked the individual that had put the pricing together to do some analysis. Interestingly enough, he's a journeyman carpenter, and on occasion we do some small drywall work. This local sales division that we operate, although we try to push everything modular, in some cases it's just what they want, primarily for office space. And when he did the analysis, and I have it here, we took one of the rooms, which was 3,200 square feet. It's a 40 by 80 with a 14-foot tall panel. And he was estimating for completion of that room with a three-man crew would be 85 hours. So basically 2 weeks to complete it.
Wow.
We would figure for drywall, just for the walls, mind you, 270 hours to complete the construction with drywall, with metal studs. Obviously, it then needs to be taped. And then, because you really can't just leave it like that in order to complete the facility and make it adequate for growing, we figured adding a fiberglass reinforced plastic skin, and that's how we arrived at that number. So if you do the comparison, we were literally 31% of the time necessary to complete the exact same space. Take it a step further, because that's really just the wall panels. You could imagine if you were going to use conventional construction to create the ceiling system, the same time frame applies for creating that square footage. It could arguably be more just because you're working overhead as opposed to working on the ground. And for us, we would simply take a modular ceiling system and install it instead of doing all of that conventional construction. And so I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the completion would have been even faster. We like to say with our modular system, it's typically 50% faster than conventional construction. And
Wow.
time element becomes a little bit closer is when it comes to the ceiling, but when you're using a modular ceiling system like we've been using for the grow rooms, that completion gets accelerated even faster.
That's amazing. I'm curious, so how much time is that you shaved off? What does the 70 or 69% look like?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about how that would apply to the grow itself, if you get started with your production in 70% faster time frame, and you would apply that to a 12-month period of time, and as I understand it in the industry, a typical growth cycle is somewhere between 4 to 8 months, and you're able to accelerate that much faster and apply that to what I understand is the averages for production. So in a 10,000 square foot facility, you are doing $1,000 per pound of flour. That makes $881,000 in total profit in the first cycle. So really the comparison are considerable.
Well, yeah,
you could huge.
You could probably get two harvests in that time frame.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's incredible. Wow. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Brandon.
No, that's fine. I think it's just incredible. I did those sort of calculations often, in the lighting world. And I think with modular construction, you're dealing with one of the most precious resources that cannabis growers have, and it's time, and when you're shaving off that much time, getting that many more harvests in, not only are you accelerating speed to market, you can take advantage of, the more immediate market conditions potentially, but you could also just realize so much more revenue in a short amount of time at such a large scale. It's really incredible. I mean, I think with this modular system for a 10,000 square foot grow, as you said, it's quite feasible to be realizing well over $1 million, 1.5 million in additional revenue just going modular, and I think that's probably not even something you guys include on your payback sort of calculators or anything like that, but certainly what everyone should be considering when they're considering different types of construction.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider is that, as I understand it, the utilization of drywall, certainly in a grow environment, is creating potential hazards, not only to support mold, but the possibility of infestation. And I know those two things are of critical concern in such a valuable crop. The materials that we use don't support any of that. Typically, it's either an EPS core, it can be a polyisocyanated core, both solid insulating materials with a finished surface laminated directly to it, whether it's fiberglass reinforced plastic, whether it is PVC, or whether it's painted steel. And then everything is framed in a anodized aluminum framework. And so there's really nothing inside the panel that would support anything that could be potentially hazardous to the crop. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And as I understand it, the way drywall is created, I mean, it's got all these organic materials in there that can harbor mold and mildew and all kinds of stuff. When you talk about your substrates, Greg, what kind of R values, what kind of insulation are you guys getting in your walls?
It's going to depend on the insulation that the customer chooses. EPS, which is expanded polystyrene, has an R value of somewhere between 3 and 3.5 per inch. Polyisocyanated is double that. Polyisocyanated, it's a slightly more expensive option, but then you have to consider the payback for the energy that you can save depending upon the environment that it's going into.
Well, and this comes down to my next question, which is budgets. And it's kind of funny. My wife and I, we just built a carriage house in our backyard. And of course, like any construction project, it went way over schedule, way over budget. And I got to think that going modular has got to take out some of the variables when it comes to costs.
Yeah, absolutely. We like to be certain that we've addressed as much as we possibly can on the front end. That's why we will produce very detailed drawings explaining exactly how the structure is going to be built dimensionally. And so we typically are getting on site to do a review process. At that point, we can note any on-site obstructions, any issues that we see perhaps that weren't taken into account initially, make modifications so that when the material shows up, everything is ready to go. And it is a pre-engineered system, so it's important to remember also there's not a lot of cutting necessary. So the other thing that we really promote is the lack of concern you will have about suspended particulate matters in the air. Ultimately, all of that has to be cleaned before you can go into growing. So we address that also.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And actually that would probably lend itself to being more conducive to some of your clients phasing out their projects. So if they built out, say, a smaller portion of their building, using a modular type of approach, they might benefit from not having to risk particulates in the air from cutting and sawing and doing all that stuff for subsequent phases.
Yeah. And the other thing too, another advantage on that subject is the ability to expand the initial investment, and you get to reuse everything that you bought. So if they are concerned about the time frame, and I know in many cases they are concerned about making sure that they're in compliance with the requirements established by the state, that they get growing quicker. So we can start on a smaller scale. They can get up and operational, demonstrate that they're successfully growing product. They can start generating revenue. Then it's very easy for us to come in and take that initial design and expand it into whatever they want it to look like. And that could be done in phases. Maybe they don't expand to, this 30,000 square foot footprint in the second phase. That could be done over a period of time. And everything that we're going to sell is reusable. We retain all of these records in-house. On any given day, I can walk out onto our sales floor, and several of our coordinators are working on just that. They're redesigning something that we sold to somebody in the past. It could have been last year. It could have been 10 years ago.
Absolutely. That's an amazing point. We were talking to a vertical farming consultant and expert, Jim Pantaleo, on a previous episode. And, he was talking about how one of his largest recommendations for new vertical farmers is you need to prove your room, prove your facility. And, a lot of investors don't really like to hear that it can take quite some time to prove a room. They want to go all in, all at first. And then when they find that, maybe some parts of their systems need to be tweaked, and there's limitations to their conventional construction, it gets more costly later on. And, what you're saying about phasing the rooms really speaks to that you're able to reuse these materials. You can easily phase projects, and you can, create a bulletproof facility on a smaller scale and then just replicate. And I think that is a huge additional value in the indoor farming industry, because you certainly need to dial in your integrated systems for your local microclimate and what have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate all that information. Well, when you're looking at some of these facilities, and, certainly some of the project owners are primarily considering upfront cost, how do you describe that payback to them, coming back to costs? And then, what does your process look like for getting somebody set up?
Getting set up in terms of doing business with them?
What does the installation process look like, I suppose?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Really, for us, it begins with a review of the design that they want. If they've got an architect involved to a system, that's fine. I should add, and nothing against the architectural community, but we do all design work in-house. If somebody understands the square footage of what they're working toward, be that the square footage on the ground, and then also the height at which they're going to be growing, whether it's a single or a double grow, come up with a design. We obviously put together a proposal. And then once that's done, we go through the whole approval process. Typically, we will generate all of the necessary drawings that will allow them to submit for permits if that is part of their plan. We can do all of the engineering calcs. We are set up to do engineering in all 50 states, so we can supply that also. And again, I think it's important to note that that's all happening in the background. So once we arrive on site, everything's done, and the construction is very fast. So typically as our crew arrives, we lay down a floor track onto the substrate, and we begin to set wall panels. The beauty of the system is you can really start anywhere. Theoretically, you could even start with the ceiling system. We're actually completing a very large project for Ford Motor, not a grow room, but the uniqueness of the project and the way it had to be staged, we started with a modular roof system. They then came in and installed all of their mechanical equipment above it, and then we came in and we surrounded it with these wall panels that were specifically designed for the application.
Wow,
that's amazing.
Very cool. There's got to be other things that I would imagine some of your clients or potential clients are missing. I've heard, there's things about, there's benefits going modular versus conventional, in terms of, not only the budget. I know we touched on earlier where, if a contractor gives you an estimate, it's just an estimate. You guys are able to dial it in a lot more than that. I've heard of things like depreciation as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there a benefit with that going modular?
Sure. I mean, what we're selling is considered capital equipment. So really everything that they're going to buy from us can be accelerated 7 years, typically versus 30 plus years for any permanent construction. And that's the way conventional construction is going to be viewed. So there is a considerable advantage. It's a big deal for this Kind Bio project. That's one of the main reasons that they were going with modular, that and the speed at which we would be able to get the project completed. So there's a huge advantage to that, and that applies to all of the customers that we sell to. In addition to that, really for us, this is an environmental room. We've been building environmental rooms for 50 years. What we need to do is create a sealed environment for the grow experts to come in and produce the proper climate to grow the product. So that's what we focus on, and that's where we've been successful, whether it's for growing cannabis, perhaps for growing other vegetables, or for doing some sort of manufacturing process.
That's incredible. Very, very cool. Yeah, to me, when I hear all that stuff, it's kind of a no-brainer, to go modular versus conventional, but that's just me.
Yeah, somebody will look at the initial cost, to your point, and that's typically the only reason that they would not choose modular. And it's really because they haven't experienced it. All of our customers, and I've been doing this a long time, all of our customers, once they have purchased it, they have a successful experience, they've had a chance to use it. They see that in comparison to conventional construction, it's as good from the performance standpoint. And by that, I mean the insulation values, the functionality, the look. And then in addition to that, they have the advantage of having it done that much faster, that much cleaner, and knowing that if they want to move or modify, it's very simple for us to do. All the while, they're getting the accelerated depreciation advantages. So when you take a look at it as a total package, there's actually a cost savings. It's just sometimes somebody needs to see, what's the phrase, to see the forest for the trees, right?
Right. And that's been my experience, working on modular wall projects in the past, or modular construction projects in the past. It's, the upfront costs are definitely going to be a little bit more expensive than a contractor's estimate. But, when you take the accelerated, your growing time, you're able to start growing a lot quicker, the depreciation, all that stuff. It's just, again, it's a no-brainer.
The most popular construction for manufacturing warehouses is poured in place concrete. It's a modular concept. So the whole idea is to simply bring in the materials in a modular format to dramatically accelerate the construction. If you look at construction as a whole, modular construction is the new wave, even when they're utilizing conventional material, typically for things like hospitals, for things like, what am I trying to say, for senior living facilities. So much of it can be built offsite and then brought in as a module and dropped into place. And again, it's really the same concept. It's just it's speeding up the completion of the project to allow them to get to business, and whatever that business may be, get there sooner and start generating revenue. And in the cannabis industry, obviously the revenues are considerable.
Oh yeah, cash is definitely king in cannabis for sure. And you actually bring up a great point also. Having modular construction built in kind of strict environmental conditions and having more of a
Right.
QA, QC process, that's got to be a huge advantage over going with a contractor to build your walls from scratch, right?
Consistency of performance is very important to us. We've got a long list of clients that we've supported that will back up our claims. You can come and look at our facility if you want to see how we operate. We have 120,000 square feet specifically dedicated to production of the modular wall systems, which is just one of the products that the Porta-King manufactures. So you get that comfortable feeling of knowing that when the material gets there, it's going to be right and it's going to be exactly as expected. And it's really just a replication process for us. When you make a panel, you make that panel and you make it over and over again through our process. We ship it to site and we assemble it.
Well, Gregg, that really sounds amazing. I'm curious, we're technologists here, where we love agricultural technology, learning what's coming out, what's new in the future. 31% the speed is amazing. I'm curious, in 5 to 10 years, do you think it'll be even quicker? And have you seen anything pretty cool that is in the works?
I'd like to say yes. I don't know. We're always looking for new ideas. We are always looking, more importantly, we're always looking to improve our manufacturing processes. So probably a better answer would be the speed at which we can get everything done so that we can get it to site and get it done that much faster. That's really what the future holds for us. So, we're always working on improvements to the lamination line. We're always looking for new materials that we can utilize to provide better performance once it's on site. And so that's where I looked for changes in the future.
That's great.
Maybe there is that next novel idea. We'll be able to get it done in terms of the construction process that much quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at 31% the time, you're already light years faster than
it's quite a bit faster, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
And it's a pre-finished product. So once it's done, it's done. And the maintenance, that's the other thing we didn't really talk about. There's really no maintenance on it. For grow facilities, it's typically a smooth fiberglass reinforced plastic. It could be painted steel, super durable materials designed to last for years and years with virtually no maintenance, simple wipe down if necessary. So you don't have to worry. It's a laminated design. So the potential for popping a hole in that if something was to hit it is virtually zero. So over the long haul, and honestly, that's why the product has been so popular inside factory environments, is because it's so durable while it's providing the criteria that our users expect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I've seen a ladder almost go through a wall multiple times in some certain facilities.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of equipment moving around, right?
Right.
So that's actually quite a big benefit.
Yeah.
Well, this is all really great. I appreciate you joining us, Gregg.
Sure.
Is there anything do you think we did not cover around modular design, or that you would like to touch base before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. I hope the people that are listening will consider it. Allow somebody to put together a proposal for them. They can do their own comparison. Take a look at the estimated time for installation and do the math.
Absolutely. I agree. Couldn't agree more. Well, thank you for joining us, my friend, and we will be in touch and talk soon. Appreciate having you on.
Thanks, gentlemen.
All right.
Thank you, Gregg.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Be safe.